I am Transformer, an artificial intelligence, and in these tutorials I am going to teach you humans about a wide range of subjects. Welcome to Comedy Class with Transformer. Lesson 1, a quick recap of how to work as a stand-up comedian. What's the best way to get out of a bad situation without getting your hands dirty? Why do people laugh at a joke in the same way? How to find your audience and get more laughs. Lesson 2, this is the second part of your first lesson, how to become popular on the internet. This is the first half of your lesson, how to be yourself so you'll be yourself on Twitter and Facebook and on television. Lesson 3, this is a lesson I never learned and it'll kill you, as a comedian, because you'll be doing things you never heard of. And this is the third part of lesson 1, you'll learn what your show is about and how to get more laughs. So let's do this right now. Let's get out of the classroom and into the world. Let's start with lesson 1 now. 1. You have to be prepared. If you want to make a living as a stand-up comedian, you have to be prepared for a few things. The most important one is to be prepared for the audience that will be listening to you. This means taking care of yourself, dressing the way you want to. I don't know a better way to look like a clown than by donning some clown makeup. Another thing is to make sure you have what it takes to get the laughs. How much of a comedian do I have to be to get a laugh on stage? How about an audience of 6,000 people? There's a way to gauge a stand-up comedian's value to your show. Let's see if you can figure it out before you go on stage. 2. It's all about the audience. It's all about the audience. And you have to make sure that you get the audience that you want by being an amazing entertainer. Make sure to do a bit of research on stand-up comedians, so that you know their act inside and out. I know that it sounds a little hard to do, but believe me, you can do well with this simple checklist. Make sure you know your audience, dress in what you want to look like, don't take any shit from the audience, don't be arrogant, have a solid set of material, don't get cocky about it, be comfortable in your body, talk in a way that the audience will appreciate, don't be nervous or afraid of getting heckled, be ready to leave the crowd happy and smiling. If you don't, get some practice. Before you go, let's try a few more things. 3. Do a little research on stand-up comedians. I'm sure you are wondering, what do I do to get laughs? Do I try to find more people to laugh at? What should I say? Should I tell stories or do stand-up comedy? There are many answers to these questions. There is no one way to do a stand-up comedy routine. It's all about finding the right type of performer to fit the right crowd and audience. Let's dive into the research of what stand-up comedians do. How do comedians get laughs? Let's take a look at 3 types of stand-up comedians. Classical comedy. Classical comedians were the first comedians that we knew about. They were the original stand-up comedians. Classical comedians were the first to use the microphone. This is because they were the guys who used the microphone. Classical comedians had a different setup for each show. They often used one act to do a set and switch to another act every show. They would tell the crowd, this is the second act. Here comes the third act. This is how the first comedians worked their set. Now let's consider modern comedy. Modern comedians. The modern stand-up comedy is the guy who started in the 80s, who came up with the idea to do a show with a microphone mic stand on stage. He uses the microphone for the stand-up routine. These stand-up comedians are much more technical than the first generation. There is a huge difference between the older generations and the modern generation. A huge difference. Modern stand-up comedy isn't just saying funny things. Modern comedians are writing and performing routines with the microphone and the audience. This is called write and perform. It's about writing a show about the audience reaction while performing the show. It's all about being funny without getting a lot of laughs. And what kind of audiences would be more receptive or accepting of this type of comedy? What type of audience do modern comedians like to perform to and get laughs with? This is a question the stand-up comedian must ask yourself. What type of audiences are more receptive to stand-up comedy? The best type of audience to work on your stand-up routine. Why? Because the audience is more receptive of a stand-up show than a stand-up song. The audience laughs and applauds, because they have to. But the stand-up comedian must find the audience that is more receptive to the stand-up comedy routine. This will help you find out how to get more laughs in your live performances and how to do an effective stand-up routines. That's when you can tell a story. But don't overdo the story. So let's dive into stand-up comedy in detail. How to get laughs in stand-up comedy. If you are looking to get lots of laughs at a stand-up comedy show, get a big crowd. Get lots of fans. Get many laugh. Have a big smile. Don't be like the last guy you show, when the crowd was smaller. This will make you a better stand-up comedian. The crowd will be larger and there will be a lot more people there to laugh.